Hello there, welcome to Genesis Models. My name is Bobby Waldron, and in this video we're going to be having a step-by-step guide on how to paint our Primaris Space Marine. Now this particular Space Marine, this particular paint scheme, it's going to be of the Ultramarines. So with this painting tutorial, it's going to be in a tactical painting style, not actually going off and doing like a golden demon. It's all about trying to get the quickest, easiest, but still very effective paint scheme for your miniature. So to start off, we want to prime this up. So I'm going to go off and get a product for that. And the product I'm going to be using is Ammo by Mig Jimenez's Surface Primer. Now this is a waterborne polymer, really good for priming. It's not just a case of it's just a paint, it's actually got that polymer in there, which it makes it really good for all your spraying and all that and painting that you do after it. Now when it comes to spraying and miniatures, I know a lot of you don't really have an airbrush. If you want to go off and check out how to use an airbrush, I've got a video of that on the Genesis Models website, where in the, I do believe it's the tutorial section, you'll find a whole buying guide and how to use and basics of using an airbrush. If not, you can simply use the spray cans, or even just use a brush to paint this on. But first off, we're going to just nicely pour this into our colour cup. And the cool thing I like about the Ammo Surface Primer is you don't have to do any thinning or anything like that. It's nice and usable straight out of the bottle. So just getting out a kitchen paper towel just to keep our surface sort of relatively clean. Test it, make sure that you're flowing nicely and there's no issues. And then what we want to do is we spray on a misty coat to start with. Right, so no coming along and blasting out an absolute load of paint. Right, just a nice simple light misty coat. So you've almost not noticing it going down, as you can see just there. You can press down the trigger just to pull to get out air, and that should dry it off really quickly because it was just a light misty coat. After getting that light misty coat, what it will do is it'll get that bit of paint down to allow all your other coats after that to have something nicely to bite to. It just helps the whole process of the spraying stick a lot better. Now we've got that light misty coat down, now we can come in with a normal light coat where we actually start to see the paint coming on. What you also want to do is, if you're spraying an area and it starts to look wet, just move to another part of the model, just to not sort of soak an area or have it pooling up with paint or anything like that. And once you've got that light that second coat on, which is a normal light coat, just let that dry for a bit, maybe sort of again, you could blow air on it or something. Maybe 10 minutes later put on another coat until you've got good coverage. Just remember, when you're spraying, you need to have your face masks on, air compressors, maybe be outside, windows open, and all that good stuff. So now it's all dry, what I've done, if you've not already seen it, there is a video of basic building of these Primaris Marines, and one of the things was to leave off the arm. This way we can actually sort of get to any sort of details in there, because it does cover things up. Now I did drill also a hole in here for just to make it look cool, but also we can actually use it for putting cocktail sticks on, which we could do with sort of cutting this just a little bit until it fits nicely in the hole and standing sort of freely like so. So now we've got all access to sort of spray that paint there separately, and I'll put that on afterwards. First off, first colour we're going to use, because the way I do things, I'm going to start off with Macragge Blue. Now with Macragge Blue, we're going to spray this on. Again, you can paint it on, or you can get the spray cans if you want. Now if you've ever wondered about sort of spraying Citadel paint through an airbrush, nice and easy. there is a product that, well, it's not really a product, it's a homebrew thinners. There is a video again on the Genesis Mods website in the tutorial section on how to make your own homebrew thinners. It's basically IPA, water and a few little other things, and it really works well with a lot of paints, and one of those paints is good old Citadel just here. So I'm just going to open this up. Right, I'm just going to get a big old paintbrush, and I'm just going to actually start to nicely dip this in here, give it a stir as it goes in. Right, and we want it to get it to sort of like a milky sort of consistency. Right, now the pigments in Citadel paints are quite thick, or shall we say there's a lot of pigments in there, so we don't need to like add that many sort of dollops of this. Right, but the whole idea is once we've sort of got it looking around about that looks sort of milky consistency, spray it on our kitchen paper towel just to see if it's spraying out nicely, and it is. So then, as we did just the same as with the primer, right, we're just going to now do a light misty coat to start off with, right, so that you almost don't even notice that it's the colours going down. It's just very faint, misty, very light all over the miniature, and just let that sit, and we can just press down for air again, let it dry off. It should dry really quickly because it is just a light misty coat, and it allows our further coats that we're going to put on now to be able to stick a lot better and nicer. So we can now put on a normal light coat again. When you start seeing it getting maybe a bit too wet, right, you want to quickly move along, and you do need to come in from all different angles with this, because I mean there's all sorts of areas we want to and need to get to, right, and then you can cut to where and just sort of let that dry off for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then keep on whacking on a light coat until you've got good coverage. So we've got our nice base colour all nice sprayed on and nice and dry. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to start doing the highlights straight away. And what I want to do, because it's supposed to be tactical painting, we're not going to go off and do loads of different colours and transitions and all this going into loads and loads of highlights and loads of hours of work. We're going to keep this really nice and simple. We're going to come along with Citadel's dry blue just here, and it's just going to make this so much more easier. Now when it comes to dry brushing, there is a right way and a sort of a wrong way of doing it. I mean, when we get our dry brush and we sort of dip it into here, because the paint's kind of nice and dry, it does sort of, you know, get the bristles on the brush being already sort of in a dry brush kind of consistency, and it's just an easier way of getting that effect a bit more quicker. Now what you got to remember is, if you've got too much paint on your brush, you're going to end up just having loads of sort of brush strokes, and at the same time how you apply it is going to determine, you know, how good this is going to look. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to fill my brush full of paint, right, and then I'm just not going to go all over it, because, you know, it doesn't give you that good effect. What we want to do is we actually want to target this really sort of nice and properly. So for instance, any sort of raised edges, right, as you can see, I'm actually, you know, going one way, brushing across one way. I'm not going this way and that way, it's just one way, and sort of finding those edges and sort of taking your brush along there in what would be the best way to get a nice highlight, like so. Right, so again, you don't have to be going, you just sort of give it that nice brush where it is, and sort of have that really good sort of targeted highlight. And as you can see already, I've already sort of highlighted those areas up rather nicely actually. Now because we're doing this first, it doesn't, so I mean, you want to be as neat as possible. but we're going to be putting all sorts of gloss coats and everything on top of this, so it will sort of blend things in if you sort of maybe make it a little bit of a mistake here and there or something. Also, because we're going to be putting gloss coats on this, it's going to sort of slightly dull back our highlights just here with the dry brush, so maybe just sort of dry brush this maybe a little bit more intense than you want it to be, knowing that with everything that's gonna come later, this is gonna sort of, it's gonna be knocked back. So go a bit more intense, so later on it gets knocked back with all the gloss coats and you just get it just as you want it. You kind of need a bit of experience with that, but you should sort of be alright if you just kind of take it that little bit further than you normally would.